It's Provinciano.
Apologize to any Italian listeners. Really butchering this.
Just going to keep on selling systems, and then they're going to come to Gamescom, and they're going to set people straight, and then there'll be more rumors, and there'll be more questions, and then they'll go to the Tokyo Game Show, and they'll blow that shit up. The fishing pole.
Okay. Not the
like
fishing
he's
pole.
the fucking bait. No. He like scales up the fishing pole, and they put a hook in his mouth and throw him out to sea. What the?
You did it, Kojima.
Hello. Bakey
Hello.
Brothers podcast.
Yes.
First ever PS4 podcast.
First ever Gamers Tribune PS4 podcast. I'm Josh Bakey.
GamersTribune.net. I'm Rob Bakey.
Or .com. They both work.
Or follow me at Smamsy.
That's at Smamsy, S-M-A-M-S-E. If you missed the introduction to that particular name, you should go back to our last podcast, the Xbox One podcast.
Yeah, since only 3 of you listened to it.
I think we actually had 9
doubling
views.
That listeners.
I think we had 9 views, and 6 of them were people we knew. So I guess 3 is about right.
Okay.
I'm Josh Bakey. You can follow me at TGT Josh on Twitter. No underscore or anything like that. TGT, thegamerstribune.com.
All right.
Today we're doing the PS4 first take, no editing. We're calling this the what is it? The
non-censored.
Non-censored, because it's nonsense and it's uncensored.
Yeah.
Little play on
I
words
like
there.
that. Yeah. We just came up with that like probably 2 minutes before we started rolling. So
Well, you could have said we came up with it right now, but
yeah,
you ruined it.
That would have been better.
Yeah, you ruined it.
But
so the non-censored PS4 podcast, and we're going to be talking specs and launch titles.
Yeah. So all right. So not a whole lot of news this week in the PS4 category, but you know, it's
July.
Trickling in a little bit. I think
Gamescom around the corner.
I think Sony is looking forward to Gamescom, like Josh just said, around the corner, and
keeping a tight lid,
unveiling a lot of stuff come London. So
I think it's in Germany.
Is it in Germany? I thought it was in London.
I believe it's in Cologne, Germany.
Oh, maybe
we should confirm that. This is
I just saw Cologne, and I assumed that meant UK. But
is there a Cologne in the UK as well?
Yeah, I think so.
This betrays my ignorance. I thought it was in Germany, but it could be. We should find that out. I literally wrote an article in which I said it was in Germany. There goes my journalism degree.
You can see the kind of standards we hold ourselves
I went
here at GamersTribune.net.
I went to the Gamescom website and it said Cologne, Germany. I could have sworn.
Nonetheless, whether it's in Germany, whether it's in the UK, it's across the pond, and it's not in fucking America. So,
well, I say we're going to edit that out.
What?
Us being confused about where Cologne's located.
No, we're definitely not going to. It's non-censored.
Yeah, well, they won't know.
Well, they'll know.
Okay.
So it's not going to be. I ensure our listeners, 3 that are out there, that
it might be 6. It might be 6 this week. We might double our listening.
Well, we'll see. So that's 6 people that are going to hear us stumbling right out of the block. So
yeah,
and who's going to be with us from the beginning? We need people that are going to say that they were here when the Gamers Tribune launched, and down the road we're kicking ass. So
get active on the forums. Let us know. Get active on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Tell your friends, even though it's horrible. it's still got to be more entertaining than most of the stuff out there.
All right. Anyway, so PS4, much to do about the RAM situation.
RAM.
The Xbox One was, pretty much right out of the gate. They told you that they were using 3 gigs of RAM for their multiple OSs and juggling and, running things in the background, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like they thought it would impress people. Like, this is where our OS is so powerful, it takes 3 gigs to power it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because, I mean, their reveal was all about their OS, more or less.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
40% of the RAM power dedicated to the OS, and then we find out, you know, the bomb is dropped by Digital Foundry that the PS4 uses as much as 3.5 gigs for their OS.
Speculation.
Which, yeah, it is speculation.
But it was based on, as I understand it, internal development documents from an actual Sony developer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, his source was reliable, presumably.
Yeah. But then more news comes out. There's supposedly this nebulous floating RAM available to the OS or available to games, depending on when it's called upon.
Flexible memory.
Yeah. So
although there was that. Did you see the Sony release?
What?
They said the flexible memory is allocated by the OS, but it's strictly for games. That was their caveat to the article. Interestingly, they did an update. They sent an update clarifying the flexible memory, but not actually confirming or denying the report itself, which I found incredibly odd.
Yeah.
Why would you take the time to correct a mistake in the article, but not actually correct the article itself?
Yeah, and it does seem like Sony's being really, really like closed-lipped about everything right now. They're not confirming, they're not denying much of anything, and they're not really releasing a whole lot of information.
Well, I mean, they've been sitting back and watching Microsoft try to swing their dick around and basically trip all over it. They're coming out. They're coming out with all these declarations, and I guess one side of that you could say that they're being open and honest about what product they're selling you. And Sony's being more kind of coy about it and saying, you know, we're not going to tell you how much RAM is actually going to be available. Maybe they'll announce it at Gamescom. Maybe they won't. I don't know. And obviously Microsoft came out the gate with all their games, kind of like, here's what we're going to have. So far, it seems like Sony is still kind of keeping that even close to the vest, 3-4 months away from launch.
It seems to me, and maybe this is the perception that Sony's trying to portray, is that Sony's playing it cool right now. You know, it's like they're very calculated with what they're going to reveal when, and they're kind of letting Microsoft, like you just said, they're kind of letting Microsoft sort of stumble and be on the defensive and deal with the outcry of the public and kind of letting them be, you know, it's like Operation, you know, Microsoft Shield, where they're in the front lines taking all the heat while Sony's standing in the background. And then once Microsoft's taken all the heat for, you know, X, then they reveal the fact that they're basically doing the same thing.
I know. To me, it's almost kind of the opposite, though, where, I mean, they're letting Microsoft play offense and they're playing defense, but they're relying on Microsoft to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, they're letting Blaine Gabbert throw interceptions. You know what I mean? Like, no offense to any Jacksonville fans out there. I think you know that Blaine Gabbert's terrible. I mean, we're gonna mix a little sports here. We're sports fans. I apologize. I know most of you gamers out there probably have never picked up football in your life, you nerds. But I'm just kidding. I'm a nerd
way to
myself.
isolate our audience.
Yeah. The 6 people out there. Hopefully, 5 of you have played football, or at least watch it. That was my long-winded way of saying I just think that Sony, strangely, in my opinion, because Microsoft doesn't necessarily have a history of this, is just letting Microsoft continually make mistakes. But I would almost say it's kind of coming back around on them, though, a little bit. I mean, the last month or so, I feel like Microsoft's got some pretty positive momentum.
Yeah.
And Sony's just kind of sitting in the background, not really doing a whole lot.
Well, you say Microsoft has some positive momentum, but at the same time, I mean, one of the things that Eurogamer / Digital Foundry, you know, did was try as best they can to set up a test environment to sort of analyze the technical differences between the PS4 and the Xbox One. And at least according to them, which, you know, they're known to be
theoretical.
Well, yeah, but they're a very technical website that breaks down, you know, every little statistic and chart and, you know, teraflops and blah, 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 blah. So a lot of stuff that's over my head to an extent. Teraflops basically is like, you know, saying flux capacitor. But anyway, it's they're kind of trying to break down the tech specs, and at least according to them, the bandwidth, the speed of the RAM, the CPU processing power kind of all favor Sony. And then today we get, a news article that, basically is splashed across the internet now saying that the Xbox One has gone in and increased the clock speed of their CPU by 53 GPU, whatever, by 53 megahertz.
Oh, there's a big difference.
To an extent, that still sort of plays into this sort of public perception that Microsoft is still on the defensive and trying to counter everything that Sony's throwing at them.
Well, I think you made a couple of leaps there. I mean, first of all, I don't think Microsoft gives a shit what Digital Foundry's writing about. And, well, I mean, in terms of their theoretical calculations based on statistics. I mean, it says in that article that all those numbers weren't even real life test numbers. They were just based solely on computations based on the performance that they would expect those specs to have.
Right.
So I mean, they didn't even build computers. Like, these aren't even actual computers. They're just theoretical. And then on top of that, obviously, all these games are optimized specifically for these cards. I mean, think like The Last of Us running on 512 megabytes of RAM. You try to plug that game into a computer running on 512 megabytes of RAM, it's going to look like absolute shit. You run it on a PS3 that's been optimized to the T, and you can get that performance out of it. So I don't know how much faith I put in that. I mean, obviously, it's a difference. I think everybody's kind of acknowledged and accepted at this point that Sony has the more powerful console, at least in terms of what their potential output is. Now, the PS3 was leaps and bounds better than the Xbox 360. It came out a year later. But, cross-party platform games actually ran better on the 360 because it was easier to develop for. So,
yeah.
I don't know. We'll probably see some really pretty PS4 exclusives, and we'll see some really pretty Xbox One exclusives, and cross-platform games will look more or less the same.
Yeah, and kind of what we're hearing from every sort of industry person that's talking about the comparison between these two systems, and even Eurogamer, what they're saying is that these two systems are very similar, very close.
Yeah.
I mean, they're far more similar than the Xbox 360 versus the PS3.
And I think this generation will be much like last generation, where graphics weren't the reason you bought or didn't buy a system.
Exactly.
You bought or didn't buy a system because of the ecosystem, the Xbox Live versus the PSN. Like, now, I mean, acknowledge clearly that PSN Plus has a much better free game structure. I mean, they're giving away great games. Like, I think this week they just gave away Battlefield 3. Well, on the other side, Microsoft's giving away Crackdown, which is like 8 years old.
Crackdown.
Yeah, like, it's kind of pathetic. And Assassin's Creed 2. And they're just way behind the game in terms of that. But at the same time, Xbox Live is going to be the place to go for first-person shooters because they have cloud computing and they have dedicated servers, and it's going to be a better competitive gaming experience, theoretically, according to places like Respawn, etc.
We'll definitely see. I mean, there's still a whole lot to shake out there. But I think it's certainly important to point out that since all of this announcement about the RAM and how much, the OS is using, there is an even more recent announcement from GameThirst.com saying that actually 6 gigabytes are available to games on the PS4.
I don't trust this source.
Yeah, I don't know how reputable it is. I've never heard of it.
They're quoting a Twitter quote, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, it's not really them reporting it. It's a developer on Twitter saying that the story is ridiculous, right?
Right. It's, let's see, it's Provinciano.
Apologize to any Italian listeners. Really butchering this.
Yeah, nonetheless, he's saying that that's absolutely ridiculous and it's false, and 6 gigabytes of RAM are available in games that are currently being developed for the PlayStation 4.
Now, okay, to be clear, he's not saying that. He's saying that it's ridiculous. The 6 gigabytes thing is from NeoGAF, right? It's a user on NeoGAF claiming that they're a developer and that they know that there's games in development that are 6 gigs.
Yeah, you're right.
So, again, this is my main issue with this whole thing is, like, why is Sony not just coming out and saying what it is? Like, I don't understand. If it was 6 gigs and
Because to an extent, because Sony really doesn't have to come out and say what it is. They don't really give a shit to an extent as long as the pre-order numbers keep climbing, which they are.
Well, I don't know.
Like they're just going to keep on selling systems, and then they're going to come to Gamescom, and they're going to set people straight, and then there'll be more rumors, and there'll be more questions, and then they'll go to the Tokyo Game Show, and they'll blow that shit up because Japan is like, you know, Sony's from Japan. It's going to be a huge ordeal. It's going to be a huge spectacle, and everybody's going to be all jazzed up for the PS4 2 months before it's released.
Okay, that's all well and good, but I'm saying an article comes out claiming your system is allocating 3.5 gigs of RAM for your OS, and even like read the art or the comments from any article talking about it, and even PS4 fanboys are like, that is a lot of RAM for an OS, but the GPU is still faster, blah, blah, blah. Like, they definitely, that was a blow to even, like, people who were, like, really jazzed up about the PS4. So why, if they know that that's wrong and they know that it's 2 gigs or whatever, why not just come out and make a statement and say, this is incorrect, this is actually how much it is, and then just squash the whole thing right there?
Yeah,
I don't completely understand that.
I don't know. You're right. I agree with you on that. I don't know why they're not talking about it, but, you know.
I mean, even if they come out, I assume at Gamescom they'll address it. They have to address it at some point, where they're just going to wait until the system comes out and then people have their hands on it.
I mean, either way, the rumors that are floating out around there, you're either, you know, equal with the Xbox 360, the Xbox One in terms of available RAM, or you're slightly ahead. The RAM technically is faster, but, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you know, Xbox One has that 32 megabytes or whatever eStat RAM or whatever it is that's on the actual chip. I mean, harder to develop for, but supposedly lower latency. Like, I'm not an expert on RAM or memory or anything like that, but it seems to me it's going to depend a lot on how the developers use it. But again, I think this generation is going to be determined by features and what appeals to you. Do you like the Kinect? Do you not? It seems like that's a pretty big dividing line.
Yeah.
It's kind of like abortion for politics. Like, not to get too deep, but it's like, or, you know, that's like a make or break issue for a lot of people is Kinect. They think it's either an NSA spy device or it's this awesome new tracking technology that could eventually lead to this cool virtual reality world now with like the Oculus Rift and all this stuff. Like, people think the Kinect is a piece of shit and worthless, or they think it's awesome in the future of gaming. That's kind of like, to me, is the big dividing point, is the Kinect.
Yeah. I think what we can do is summarize this whole opening segment as far as RAM is concerned, as far as technical specs are concerned, as far as these comparisons. Exactly. Who really gives a shit? And the people who really give a shit are kind of the more PC-minded people. And there's nothing knocking that. I mean, that's fine, and it's fun to talk about and all this kind of stuff, but ultimately, this console war, quote-unquote, is going to be all about the content, all about the games. And when the games start coming out and start rolling out, regardless of what sort of magic Xbox or PS4 can pull out of their hats in terms of the way that, you know, certain games are rendered or et cetera, these games are going to look gorgeous. They're going to look awesome. And it's going to come down to what games, what experiences, you know, trump the other.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's going to be about.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of PC people will chime in every time you talk about specs. Oh, these specs are terrible. My PC can do that 3 years ago or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I have an Alienware that's almost 2 years old and has 8 gigs of RAM in it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not especially exciting, but at the same time, you also have to consider PC games are generally ports of console games, the AAA stuff. Yeah. I mean, console gaming is huge, you know? Yeah. I mean, you're talking about the Wii sold 90 million, the PS3 and PS4 combined sold 150. I mean, those are huge install bases.
Right. And the difference, and I don't want to get too technical because it'll betray my ignorance, but the difference between PC and console gaming, from my understanding, is that console games in a lot of cases can look really, really good with less intensive specs versus a PC game, only because in the PC world, you've got so many variables that it's not a known quantity in terms of trying to optimize the game for X. You know what I mean? And in the console world, it's very clearly defined exactly what the specs are going to be when you make the game, and so you get a guaranteed known outcome. and therefore a PS3 and Xbox 360 game, while at this point is lagging behind the PC. At one time, the specs that made an Xbox 360 game look awesome, you'd have to double the specs on a PC to try to make it look as good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, like we said before, you put The Last of Us on a 512 megabyte system, and it's not going to run. Mm-hmm. You know, like the RAM that the length that you can get out of the RAM in a console to that degree of optimization is going to be incredibly different from what you would get on your standard 512 chip in a computer.
So you're not comparing apples to apples.
No, and you're also
PC guys always talk like you're comparing apples to apples, and you're not comparing apples to apples.
No, and you're also talking about screens that are much lower resolution on console. I mean, a 720p 60-inch television's got a 1280 by 720 resolution. Your standard low-end computer monitor now is 1600 by 900. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You're not talking about, and resolution makes a big difference. I mean, if you're on a computer that has a 2K screen or a 4K screen or whatever, you need way higher specs to run that resolution than you would to run a 720p version of The Last of Us. So,
right.
It's not apples to apples. And I mean, like, I have a powerful PC. I don't play it nearly as much as I play my consoles because I love the immersion of a surround sound system and all that, and I love the controller. I know there are ways you can rig it so you could kind of get the same sort of experience, but, you know, consoles are just the way to go for me. I mean, it's like PC gamers think that everybody should be a PC gamer, and there are a lot of pros. I mean, modding communities are cool. The games are more moddable, almost universally speaking. I mean, you can mod almost anything if you know what you're doing.
Right.
But they're always stable on console. You know what you're going to get. They're optimized for specific hardware. You know it's going to be able to run. If you get a game home that you're really excited to play, you plug it in, realize you have to put on low settings because it won't run on your computer. You'll never have that problem on a console. So yeah. There's going to be some like PC freak that's going to listen to this and like totally rip me to shreds. Tell me why I'm a fucking idiot. And he might be right. I don't know. But that is where I stand on it. So
yeah. All right. So sort of our next little news update here. The PS4 is allowing online chat open to all gamers.
Hooray!
Free of charge.
Exciting news from 6 years ago.
They're also upping their friend cap. They're doubling it versus the Xbox One. 2,000 friends versus 1,000 on the Xbox One.
2,000 PS.
Is Xbox One going to follow suit again and be on the defensive?
I hope not, because if I have 2,000 people in my friends network, that's way too many effing people.
Well, yeah.
I think I have
like Greg Miller or Colin Moriarty. You probably have that many friends, though.
I don't know. I wouldn't accept friends requests from randoms. Why would you? You want a bunch of people spamming your message box? Like, why would you want that? I don't know. Whatever. I really don't care. 1,000 is plenty. 2,000 is plenty more. I mean, if you're gonna have 2,000 people on your friends network.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, for the average person, this basically is the equivalent of infinity. I mean, you know. You have no friend cap to an extent.
You can't game with 2,000 different people. You just can't do it.
Right.
Like, you couldn't play enough games to touch 2,000 people on a regular basis. This isn't Twitter. You know, like, you're not. If you're playing Call of Duty, you're playing with like 4 or 5 of the same dudes over and over and over again. First of all, you're not on a PS4. You're playing on an Xbox. Well, I mean, it's the FPS console. At least it was last generation.
It was last generation. Let's not live in last generation. Let's talk about.
Well, the PS4 controller is still not designed for first-person shooters.
You don't know that for a fact. You haven't exactly touched it yet.
No, but I've certainly read plenty of accounts who have. Wow. And I mean, if you're an FPS purist, you're going to want an Xbox controller. Even PS4 fanboys acknowledge that the Xbox controller is the best controller ever made. It's just a fact. You can't even argue it at this point. Whoa. What, you're saying that's wrong? We own PS3s. We own PS3s. Right. We own Xboxes. Right. If you had to play a multiplayer shooter on your life, like somebody had a gun to your fucking head and was like, get 20 kills in this game or you die, you're going straight for the Xbox controller because you know it's more precise. It's just a better controller. And I mean, the PS4
if somebody puts a gun to your head and said, if you get 20 kills or you'll die.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you'd be screwed because you're terrible at first-person shooters.
Yeah.
But
for those of you that don't know, when I play first-person shooters on a LAN game with my friends, my objective is
you
go.
made it sound like you were 12 years old. Like you play LAN games. Everybody gets their Xbox together. Goes
whatever. My objective is to try to hide because the other team racks up so many kills against me that they score, more points than my team because I'm so terrible at first-person shooters. But
yeah, he's a detriment.
You can see why I pre-ordered PS4 instead of an Xbox One.
That said, I'm pretty good at first-person shooters, and I would much rather play on the Xbox controller. And it's nothing against PS3. I like the PS3. I mean, PlayStation Network was a mess for several years, but they've got their shit together a little bit. And, now that it's going to be a pay service universally, I'm sure it'll get even better. But 360's just got a better controller for shooters. It's just and I know this isn't an Xbox One podcast. We'll probably talk about this in the Xbox One podcast, but they've definitely doubled down with the rumble triggers and everything. I mean, they're definitely trying to get that FPS vibe.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know how we got to this. I can't remember what we were talking about.
We were talking about PS4 allowing online chat open to all gamers.
Yeah.
I don't know how the fuck we got to this.
2,000. Okay, yeah. I was talking about 2,000 people. You can't game with 2,000 people. I'm sorry. So
yeah, I think we
that's
both agree with that.
2,000 people, hooray, whatever. 1,000 is plenty.
Yeah, but it's still double Xbox One, and that's what's the important takeaway is from this.
Yeah. Sorry, I popped that cork really loud into the mic.
Pop that cork,
whatever that.
You're drinking a fucking PBR, and you're acting like you just.
I was going for classy.
You just opened a Chardonnay or some shit.
You couldn't even think of a wine name. That's how classy we are.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Merlot, Chardonnay.
I don't drink wine.
Pinot Grigio.
Yeah. I'm not a big wino. But PBR gets the job.
All right, so there's been a new trailer release for Deep Down. It looks like
worthless.
It looks like it's a game that so far has only been announced for the PS4. So we assume it's a PS4 exclusive. We don't actually know that for a fact, but nonetheless, there's been a new trailer release for it that makes it pretty clear that it's not exactly a working title anymore. I know Deep Down was originally a working title for this game, and
I think
it looks like they're going with it.
The E3 demo, I believe, was just like a tech demo, like proof of concept in trailer demo,
which looked sweet.
It did look really good.
It looked really fun.
I mean, if next gen games actually look like that, I'll shit my pants because it looks amazing,
dude. They better look like that. Well, if they don't look like that, I'll shit my pants.
I still can vividly remember the Killzone demo at E3 in 2007 before the PS3 launched. Oh, this is gonna look awesome, and then the game came out and it looked like not shit, but it didn't look nearly as good as the actual Target trailer did. And I just use air quotes there; you couldn't see it, but. Right. The Target trailer doesn't mean shit until you see the game in
Speaking
action.
of E3 demos, do you remember? Let's take a little trip down nostalgia lane. Do you remember the PS2 and when it was touting its emotion engine, and they showed like that old man's face and shit, and like how it was gonna like display all of these wrinkles and this emotion and everything like that, and then the PS2 came out.
Block hands. In Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. So these developers, the manufacturers for these systems certainly get a little overzealous with their hyperbole.
I just thought of this. You were talking about faces. Do you remember that Dreamcast game Seaman? I think it was called, where you had like a fish that had a person's face on it.
Yeah,
that was the fucking creepiest game.
Dude, speaking of Seaman, talk about lost in translation. I mean, it's basically like semen, but anyway.
I think that was intentional. It's a man's face on a fish, and it swims around. Okay. It's not very subtle.
I was reading an article on Kotaku today where it was talking about Napoleon.
Talk about semen?
No, when Napoleon Dynamite was released in Japan.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this.
Did you hear about it?
Yeah.
Instead of calling it Napoleon Dynamite, they called it Bus Man. What the fuck was that?
Bus Man.
Bus Man. And then they show a picture of a bus behind him.
Well, you always see these lost in translation movie titles. Like, I know France is notorious for this, always titling their American movies like we're the dumbest people on earth, like Fat Man Goes to Movie or something. Like, just terrible titles that don't make any sense, just totally insulting.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, again, I don't know who's titling these movies. If it's like, I assume it's some branch of the company, like if Miramax makes a film, they get to pick what the title is. Not like,
you would think so,
but maybe like the French branch of Miramax hates the American.
Well, I guess Fox had to release like apologies or some shit because the name was so awful that it like fucked up sales or something in Japan. Or
I would go to a movie called Bus Man. That's supposed to be. I would go to that movie. I'd rather see that than Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Anyway,
but Napoleon Dynamite doesn't make sense in English. It's the guy's name.
That's true.
So why would you have to change it? It's just his name. It doesn't like have any deeper meaning.
That's true.
It's strange. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I don't understand Japanese culture either. So
yeah.
Maybe there's some...
Nobody understands Japanese culture. I don't even know if the Japanese understand Japanese culture, but it's an awesome culture.
It's just so random, you know. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's not random, but I don't know if that's culturally insensitive to say that, but there's a lot of random shit that happens.
We're not xenophobic here at...
No, I mean, I love Japan. I love their weird anime and their, you know, occasional hentai viewing. But I'm just like... They do some weird stuff. Like Japanese game shows are weird as hell. I don't really know how else to say it.
So,
I mean, American Ninja Warrior was pretty sick, and America's stolen that now. But
yeah, speaking of which, have you seen that on NBC recently? Like they're showing
I've
Ninja Warrior.
Heard about it, but
it's good. It's good. I do like it, dude. Freaking what's his name? The linebacker from the Buffalo Bills that did PEDs, and now he's like out of the league. Sean Merriman.
Oh yeah,
Sean Merriman
Lights
was
out.
on. Yeah, he was on freaking the American Ninja Warrior the other day, and he like failed on like the salmon ladder or some shit.
The problem with that is like you see these guys. I remember like an American Olympian tried to do the Japanese Ninja Warrior.
The Ham brothers.
Yeah, he got pretty far, but like no, it wasn't them.
But they did do it.
They might have done it too. I mean, they're gymnasts; they probably could do it, but. He was like 6'5" and weighed like 250. I mean, he was all muscle, but you have to be a tiny little dude to do that stuff.
Yeah, you really do.
Like you can't do the
guys that blew through it were like the parquet guys that just like go in like the
parkour.
Parkour. Yeah, sorry.
Parquet. I think it's like a paper mache.
No, parquet is like the wood floors, like the crisscross wood floors in the Boston Garden.
Okay.
But anyway,
we're both
parkour.
Right.
These parkour guys that like go in the park and shit and like jump over trees and like fucking like
jump across buildings,
picnic tables and shit, and like jump off a building.
Hopefully they're doing more than that, but yeah.
Yeah, but nonetheless, they like tore it.
Yeah,
up.
I mean that's the skill set wheelhouse. Like you got to be able to have strong arms to support your weight. You can't weigh a lot.
It's weird because in Japan, the guys that are the best at it are firefighters.
Well, because they got to like scale stuff. Like they got to go up ladders and God, who was the legend who like always gets to the final stage?
I don't even.
I'm trying to
remember his name.
Well,
I don't know.
It's some Japanese like Kojimati or something.
Kojimati. Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, that was terrible.
You were talking about xenophobic. Oh my god.
How is that xenophobic?
That's not xenophobic.
That's like
saying it's racially insensitive for you to just throw out a name that sounds semi-Japanese.
I don't understand why. If I said Miyamoto,
Kojinami.
Yeah, that's probably a real Japanese last name.
I bet it is.
If I said Miyamoto, we know that he created Mario. That's a real Japanese.
Oh my god, fuck me.
Okay, so if I was doing a Jewish stereotype and I said Goldberg, that would be that would be insensitive. There's a lot of Goldbergs out there. Anyway, point being, he was like a fisherman. Like he would have to like scale up the fishing pole and shit. All
the fishing pole.
Okay. Not the
like
fishing
he's
pole.
The fucking bait.
No.
He like scales up the fishing pole and they put a hook in his mouth and throw him out to sea. What the?
That would be fucking awesome if that happened. No,
the fishing pole.
He
scales up the fishing pole.
Let me explain what I meant. Let me explain what I meant before people turn this off and discuss. You got to talk into the mic.
I am talking in the mic.
Okay. You keep wandering off.
Non-censored. Remember that.
Yeah, right. No, he's got a fishing vessel which has like that. It has like a mast. You know, like think Assassin's Creed when you got to scale the mast of the ship. I remember watching like his profile video, and they were like showing.
Sucks. I don't play that game. So
It doesn't suck. It's good, but I mean it's a little repetitive, but it's pretty good. Anyway, he scales this mast, and like they showed him training. Like he doesn't do any specific training. A lot of those guys, it's like their life's mission is to beat Ninja Warrior.
Right.
Like they train like all year round. He doesn't. He just like he does his fishing shit. He just does his day-to-day stuff, and he's like climbing up and down this fishing mast, and that's how he trains for Ninja Warrior.
Okay.
And he's like a legend. So.
Yeah, he is very good.
I don't know what they get if they win Ninja Warrior, like the gratitude of a grateful nation. You did it, Kojima.
Yeah, well, I think they do win some money, but you're right. In Japan, that's a hell of a lot more of an accolade than it is in America. I think they're a little bit more nationalistic in that sense, but nonetheless,
cultural pride.
Anyway. We totally got off fucking topic. Okay, we were talking about Deep Down, the trailer for PS4.
I think Ninja Warrior is more interesting than Deep Down. But
what? Dude, Deep Down looks pretty sick.
The trailer was nothing. It was like a bunch of people talking.
Well, the more recent trailer was nothing. But what the more recent trailer did was at least give you this sense that the vibe of the game is going to be more survival horror, more darker, deeper, scarier sort of thing, which I'm totally down with. I like that.
Women whispering in the background gives you that vibe.
Don't look at the photo. Don't look at the picture, or whatever the fuck they said in that. I don't know what.
It was the same line over and over. They had like one line of dialogue.
Don't look at the picture.
I don't know.
You looked at the picture.
Japanese horror games are very... I want to put this delicately.
Yeah, you might want to think before you speak, because Resident Evil 2 was awesome.
Resident Evil is a great series, but they definitely have gone off the... They tried to go Western.
Yeah, they went way off the
They tried to go
rails.
Western. Resident Evil 4...
What they tried to do was they tried to become an FPS/action game instead of being a survival
always been
horror
third
game.
person, but...
Well, sorry, I said FPS. I use that liberally. I just mean that for everything that just shoots everything that moves.
Well, it became an over-the-shoulder shooter.
Okay.
But...
And OSPS.
Okay. All right. The point is, Japanese horror games, and I mean, certainly you romanticize a little bit. If we went back and played some of those original Resident Evils, like I did recently when they had I think they came out as a PS3 anthology, they don't hold up very well.
Right.
But I mean, like let me finish.
Fuck you.
Resident Evil 4 is an outstanding game, and still is. Like,
yeah,
it's like the one. It's really one of the only games on Wii that I really liked playing. Like the controls were cool. I mean, obviously it was a PS2 game first, but the controls were sweet. It really maxed out the PS2's graphics. I mean, it was a brilliant game. But Resident Evil 5 was crap. Resident Evil 6, I didn't even play it. So whatever. But
wait, Resident Evil 5 wasn't exactly crap.
Well, it was okay.
You and Rob Fairley like stayed up playing that shit like all night.
Well, we did like a LAN because they had that cool like co-op feature where you could play together in the same room on two different TVs. We did like a LAN.
Yeah,
that was fun. I mean, it was okay, but it was still like kind of a slog. Like you weren't really enjoying yourself that much.
Well, you're not enjoying yourself when it's 5 o'clock in the fucking morning and you're still playing it.
Well, it felt like you were saying on like kind of almost like a rails. You were like almost on rails. I mean, You're basically just linearly going through environments, shooting stuff. Like,
I mean, it's always been a linear game, though.
You can't, like, I think their biggest mistake was just even trying to make it co-op. Like, you can't make Resident Evil co-op. The whole point is the atmosphere. As soon as you add a second person in there, it ruins the vibe. So,
in terms of the isolation and the fear and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just feel like you're two dudes in a room shooting stuff up. I mean, the graphics were cool. I mean, it was a good-looking game.
Yeah.
And I still have a copy of it somewhere.
Yeah.
It just wasn't that fun to play, and I mean, just ultimately, it was very different from the Resident Evil formula.
Yeah.
But my original point was that Japanese horror games are good for the most part, but they do take a certain amount of. You have to enjoy that sort of game. Like, it's a very specific sort of niche genre. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't like that very specific kind of horror, you might not enjoy it. I mean, like, Silent Hill, I remember playing the very first Silent Hill game. Amazing game.
Yeah. Dude, that game was scary as shit. Oh, my
gosh.
Chris and I were up until, like, 4 o'clock in the morning. We got to, like, the alternate school. Bodies hanging from the fucking ceiling and shit. Oh my gosh, we both shit our pants on that game.
Yeah, I mean it was a great game, but then again, now it's got like 8 iterations, and it just kind of keeps going and going and going forever.
Like a joke. Now they just like put fucking like road hazard cones and shit on people's heads.
I mean,
and they're like
people talk shit about American developers for being too conservative and continually remaking the same games. But Japan's been doing that for, I mean, what Final Fantasy 15 is about to come out, and that doesn't even include the 12.2 and 10.2 and 13.2, like
13 verses and all that kind of shit.
That became 15, I think.
Yeah,
but I mean, like I'm saying, you get a bit of repetitiveness sometimes in these formulas. So I don't know. This Deep Down might be really cool, and the graphics look amazing. If that's what the engine's going to look like, I'll definitely play it. But I'm not getting too excited.
It looks promising.
Capcom has a pretty hit or miss recent past, so
I mean, yeah, okay, all right. I'll just leave it at that. Infamous Second Son. They just released a new developer diary / trailer or whatever. I don't know if you watched it.
I haven't seen it.
You didn't do your research, did you? Nonetheless,
Infamous doesn't really excite me.
I never played the first Infamous, so I don't really have much to go on. So from what I've heard, Infamous Second Son looks totally unlike the original Infamous, so maybe it's completely irrelevant. But
yeah, Infamous Second Son, it's one of the most next-gen looking games. I mean, it has amazing animations.
Yeah. But
then you watch the demo, and they're shooting stuff, and it's just like exploding everywhere, like into little like Lego pieces almost. I don't know. The Infamous series is one of those things where it's like people love it. Like, I'm gonna get flamed to hell for this, but people love that world. For me, it was like it felt really boring. Like, it felt really canned. You get the anti-hero protagonist who's kind of like doing everything against his will.
He's kind of like punk. He's kind of like
he's kind of like a punk, but he's also like, I don't really want to do this, but I have to. Like, that's just annoying to me. Like, be all in on it.
I wouldn't exactly say that. I mean, in the trailer that I just saw, like he's.
Well, I'm talking about previous Infamous games.
Oh, okay.
The new one, he's like, it seems like they've gone away from that, where he's like, he's excited to kill people.
Yeah, he's like smirking and shit. Like
I love this shit.
He's kind of got this bad boy punk skater edge to him to a certain extent, and
and I mean,
I don't know what to think of it. I mean,
it's gone full mocap, which I think is good. It's got the lead actor is the guy that played Joel. Trying to remember his name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in The Last of Us.
That's interesting.
Yeah, obviously he's totally changed his voice, but
wow, he plays the lead character.
Yeah, he plays the protagonist in Second Son.
Okay,
yeah.
Is it just speaking of which, this is totally off topic, but is it just me, or did Joel in The Last of Us sound exactly like Sean Marston from Red Dead Redemption? I thought he sounded exactly the same, even though I know it's totally different actors.
Huh? Oh, shit. That scared me. I almost knocked my mic over. Well, they're both Texans, I think. I mean, the Marsden is supposed to be from Texas, right? I mean, that game is Dead Red Redemption set like on the Mexico-Texas border.
Yeah.
So,
but that doesn't mean that that's where the actors from.
No, but I'm saying like they're kind of affecting a similar accent. I mean, they're both supposed to be from Texas, so you might get that vibe. I don't think it's the same actor, though. If that was what you're asking.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Again, I don't know.
Well, no, I knew that they weren't the same actor. I'm just saying that they sound
they might
similar.
be. I don't know. I mean, I'm blanking on his name now, but the actor who played Joel is he does a lot of work. I mean, he played Booker in...
this gives us a good opportunity to have our 3 listeners post something.
6.
Well, we hope we can get to 6.
Yeah,
that's what we hope.
We're aspiring.
If we can get 6 listeners, and one of those 6 can post to us who these actors are, we'd appreciate it.
Well, actually, I did see this, and again, I do know the actor's name, but I'm just blanking on it right now. I don't have my computer in front of me, and if you were a little bit faster on yours, you might have been able to look it up by now. But fuck you. I'm just kidding. But he's a really well-known actor. Like, he played Booker in BioShock Infinity, which is interesting. Okay,
so who do you want to know?
Just look up the voice actor for Joel or the voice actor for Booker. There was a chart that came out recently that showed all of the recent voice actors.
Troy Baker.
Troy Baker's
that's his name. The voice actor for The Last of Us. Let's see what the voice actor for Red Dead Redemption is.
I feel like the two big voice actors right now in games are Nolan North, who played David in The Last of Us, and he also did Deadpool, which was kind of a shitty game, but and he played Drake in the Uncharted series.
Okay.
So he's a big one. Troy Baker's a big one. These are like dedicated voice actors who do video games and who are really good at their job.
Okay.
And Nolan North, I think, did Penguin in the Batman games.
Rob Whitehoff is the voice actor for John Marston.
Yeah. So
no clue who he is.
It's probably just a Texas thing. I played Red Dead like 2 weeks ago. And
Did you really?
Yeah, I don't remember them being that close.
Did you ever play the Undead DLC?
I have it. I've played a little bit.
Because that got a 10 out of 10 on freaking IGN.
I need to play it. The problem is like I'm doing a second playthrough. So like part of me was like I'm going to finish the second playthrough and get all the achievements and then go and do the DLC.
Right.
But I do own it. I just haven't played through it yet. Right now I'm back into Skyrim of all things.
Yeah, that game is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, you can keep coming back to that.
I got the Dragonborn DLC. I've been playing through that. It's like I have 100. I saw it. I had 148 hours into that game. And
I've got like 100 something. I know that.
And I still haven't beaten it yet. Like I haven't finished the main quest.
I know. Because there's like 2 million fucking side quests that it's like... so easy to get
in my
distracted.
miscellaneous quest section, and there's like 200, like not 200, but literally probably 80 undone quests in there. Like I can't do them all.
Yeah.
And most of them are just like, little bullshit things where you like one line of dialogue and then it's, it's over.
For people like me, it's like sensory overload. Like I get all of these freaking side quests and like smithing and shit that you like crafting that you can upgrade and shit. And it's like, I just focus on all that other stuff that I'm only like 3 quests into the main quest.
But that like part of that,
and I've played 110 hours.
That's part of why I love the Bethesda games, though, the Elder Scrolls games, because like you can do all this cool shit and feel like you're this badass in the world without ever doing. Like Morrowind had a terrible main quest. I don't know if you remember. The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind had a terrible main quest. The final boss was like this dude with like a sun face. It was like the weirdest shit. And like, I bet 80% of people that play that game never beat the main quest because the whole game was everything else.
Yeah.
And Oblivion, it's kind of the same thing. Pretty weak main quest. And Skyrim, like I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know. But it maybe is one of the better main quests. But the stuff on the side is still more interesting.
I've got a friend who's played all the way through the main quest, and he said it's really freaking awesome. But
Skyrim,
yeah.
So, I know, like spoilers. There's some
spoilers.
There's some like time travel
fucking spoilers. It's like a 2-year-old game.
Well, I know.
Oh my god!
I know people might not know.
Yeah.
If you haven't played Skyrim, you should. It's really good. But I know there's like some time travel shit that happens towards the end that I haven't gotten to yet. So we'll see. I don't know. Time travel is always a little dicey.
It always.
I mean, Lost was my favorite show ever, and that had some really terrible time travel elements towards the end.
All right, let's move on to the next bullet point. There's a new Watch Dogs trailer called Honored that was just released. I know we both watched it.
Yeah, it was like a minute long.
I think they called it fucking Honored because all it was just a whole bunch of like captions
we're
that
great.
said,
"We're great."
IGN says we're fucking awesome. Best of E3, but
Kotaku, I was blown away.
Yeah, exactly. So
it was basically an advertisement.
I don't know what to think of Watch Dogs. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you,
please do.
It looks cool. It looks polished. They've definitely got a good team in terms of presentation, in terms of advertising and releasing these trailers that look badass. But really, at the end of the day, it looks like some sort of GTA clone with a twist where they can like you can press like X, Y, or Z to tap into people's phones or turn off the power to the grid system in East LA or whatever they're doing.
Chicago.
Whatever. So,
I mean, we're Midwesterners. I mean, Chicago's appealing. I'd like to see the digital Chicago world.
All I'm saying is I think Watchdog is all hype and not much substance. Ultimately, I think it's going to flop. That's what I
depending,
it depends. Yeah, it depends on what your definition is of flop. When I say flop, I mean, the game is not really going to be that great.
So,
but it's going to sell a lot of copies based upon all of its hype.
Let's define how you define flop then, because it's probably my thought would be based on what I've seen. And I haven't I don't want to make a judgment because like I said, I've only seen gameplay. Excuse me. I've only seen playthroughs and that sort of thing. And again, I don't know how diverse this gameplay is. So I don't know 100% what we're going to actually be playing when it comes out in November.
Right. I mean, the thing that they present to you is this idea that you can do anything. You can hack anything. You can, you know.
And there are only so many buttons on a controller.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, okay, so you can hack fucking ATMs and people's cell phones, and you can hack the grid system, and I mean, you can hack all this shit, but it's how do you actually make that work with an interface with a controller that has 4 buttons on it, or 10 buttons, or whatever? Right. I mean, it's still going to ultimately come down to pressing Y or X to do, whatever. Yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked if it's one of those games that everybody's expecting great things and it comes out and it's just okay. It gets 8s, 7.5s, maybe a couple of 9s. It's going to do okay reviews wise. It's not going to be a bomb.
Yeah.
But it may not live up to what people are hoping for, which is 10s, And GTA 4 I feel was a game like that for me, where it was an amazing game, but the protagonists and certain things were so poorly done that it did get some 10s and it did get some 9s, but it did sort of underperform, I think, based on what it was expected to do.
Right. Right.
And I mean, that's not a flop. It's still going to sell a lot of games, and Ubisoft has a great pedigree. I feel in a lot of ways, based on what I've heard about the multiplayer and some of these elements, it does almost feel like they're kind of adapting Assassin's Creed into the modern world and sort of putting... It's basically Assassin's Creed with new paint on it, almost, is what it feels like a little bit.
Yeah.
And Assassin's Creed is a hugely successful franchise for Ubisoft, so it makes sense that they would want to carry over some of those elements. But the multiplayer, you go into another player's game and you blend in as an NPC in their world and you try to hack them. You know what I mean? That is very similar to me to what Assassin's Creed multiplayer is, where you're sort of trying to blend in with the NPCs and be in another player's world and assassinate them, basically.
Right.
So, I don't know. We'll see how innovative it actually is. But every game has gameplay mechanics. I mean, it has to,
Right.
I mean, there are buttons mapped to certain things. If you can only hack with Y, that's fine, as long as they come up with ways to make the hacking interesting and make it fit into the world in an interesting way.
Right. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, how diverse and crazy can they get with all the different ways that you can accomplish your mission? I mean,
yeah.
It'll be, to me, it kind of smacks of Dishonored to a certain extent. I mean, when that game came out and all the trailers everybody saw for it, it was sky's the limit. You can do 10 million different things to get from point A to point B. And the reality was that you could do maybe 3 different things. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah.
You could...
every game like that, though, the problem is the player more than anything. Dishonored could give you 10 ways to do something, but 95% of players are going to do it one of 3 ways because they're programmed to do that,
Yeah.
Yeah, you can possess a rat.
We don't want to be overwhelmed with choice to an extent.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's stressful and that's exhausting, and you
come
to a game as a retreat.
Yeah, and psychologically you limit yourself by default. If you have 10 ways to kill somebody, your mind's only going to think of 3,
Yeah.
So no matter what the game allows you to do, the player's going to limit themselves anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to see what Watch Dogs does. I will say I think it's commendable of Ubisoft that they're at least trying to do something different. And they've already announced 2 new IPs, Watch Dogs and The Division. And
The Division does look sick.
And supposedly at Gamescom they're going to introduce a new IP as well for next gen. So that's...
Perfect segue.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say Ubisoft has 3 new IPs, plus they still have Assassin's Creed 4, which is going to be huge, and I'm excited for.
I mean, they're going to sell a lot of copies when you say huge. I mean, it's
well,
not
it
be
does.
That great
It
of a
looks
game,
cool.
but,
I don't know. I think it looks cool. They have it's the Caribbean, totally open world. You can have a ship and you can go anywhere. I don't know. I think it looks pretty sweet.
Well, if that's really what's
you're
going to
happen, you're gonna love it.
I'll be under that. I love pirates.
It's fucking pirates, dude.
I love pirates.
It's pirates. You're gonna love that game. It's gonna be fantastic.
I love pirates. All right,
so
maybe I will. Maybe that'll be the first Assassin's Creed that I actually buy.
So you're shitting on Assassin's Creed. You've never played it.
You're right. But I've watched you play it, and
it's good. Like
it looks kind of lame.
It's better than 90%.
Jump into a bale of hay from any
there's
level.
A lot of bales of hay jumping happening. That's true.
Yeah.
But like, what else are they going to do? They're trying to jump. You're trying to jump from 100 feet, 100 plus feet, sometimes 500 feet. That's not realistic, no matter what you do. So.
Yeah, I mean, it smacks of Born Identity or whatever when he rode that guy's body down like five levels, and like, all right. Anyway, sorry, that was really random. Anyway, you kind of ruined my segue, but nonetheless,
whatever. We're talking about Gamescom.
Gamescom. All right, Gamescom.
And have you confirmed? Is it in Cologne, Germany?
It is in Germany.
Okay, I was right.
It is in Germany. You're right.
Thank you.
I saw Cologne. I figured it was. Honestly, I don't know of a Cologne, Great Britain, but I figured that it was for some reason. I thought it was in London, but all right. Anyway, sorry.
So Cologne is a city inside of the city of London.
Or a suburb of it.
The dumbest thing
or some shit.
Why would they just say London? That would be more exciting.
Last week I said that the deaf read Braille. I hardly think that was the dumbest thing I've ever said. But nonetheless.
That was just a mishap. You thought about this one.
All right, so Sony has released a statement saying that Gamescom is going to be all about PS4 games. So it sounds like Sony's really trying to play it cool. They're trying to hold their cards close to the vest, and they're gonna reveal a whole bunch of exciting new games for the PlayStation.
All I can say is they better not be indie games. And B, they better not.
Dude, quit hating on the indie crowd.
No, indie's great. That's fine. Like, I've played plenty of indie games, but
indie's great, but they better not be indie games.
Well, they're not moving systems. You're not buying a launch. You're not paying $400 for a system to play an indie title.
Are you trying to tell me that you didn't buy the Xbox 360 because it had Meat Boy?
First of all, that came out years after the Xbox launched. I bought the 360 the night it came out. I still vividly remember spending the night in sub-zero temperatures in November in the Midwest.
You are such a fucking exaggerator, dude.
Are you kidding me?
We were like in our cars.
No, we weren't.
Waiting outside of Target.
We were not in our cars.
Yes, we were. We were in our cars waiting outside of Target. And then like an hour or two before the doors opened, we like came out there and got a ticket.
You're totally wrong.
All right, whatever.
There was a line of people waiting. This was before pre-orders. You couldn't just pre-order the game or the system. You had to wait in line.
It is kind of crazy, actually, that you couldn't pre-order the system. Could you pre-order the systems back then?
Well, I don't know. We were in high school? We were teenagers.
Yeah, I mean now I just pre-order shit. I mean I pre-ordered the PS4 before E3 even was going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like pre-orders were a thing back then, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I'm sure they were. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
They were a thing for the smart people.
Yeah. Anyway, every system that I bought at launch, including the Wii, I had to wait in line all night to get.
Here we go. Here's another call out to our potential 6 listeners.
I think we should
that they can correct us on.
I think we should go for 10.
Okay. All right. For our 10 potential listeners.
How many of them got this far is the question.
Yeah, no shit. We're at, what are we at now? We're at 56 minutes. Right. Did they do pre-orders back in the Xbox 360 / PS3 days?
Well, the 360 launched in 2006, 2005? They were a year apart. I'm pretty sure the PS3 was 2007. So, yeah, November 2006 would have been the 360.
I think it was October, but...
Was it? I thought it was like November 15th.
Pretty sure it was October. But.
Let's see, I actually have it right here. Silence.
Say something interesting.
Here we go. Release dates: Xbox 360 United States, November 22nd, 2005.
Oh, damn. I thought it was October. All right.
For $399.
Wow. That was as expensive as a PS4.
You could get the core system for $299, which was the one without a hard drive.
Stupid.
Well, at the time, people didn't really know why you would want a hard drive, I guess. If you were just playing games off a disc, but...
Right. You just store everything on your VCR.
Yeah, record gameplay on your VCR.
So, all right, guys. Yeah, well,
Gamescom is going to be huge. We'll be covering it at gamerstribune.com.
That's right. We'll be covering it. We'll try to pretend like we have somebody that's actually there.
Yeah.
But
we might do a green screen video of me standing looking like I'm at Gamescom. If we had a camera. Use my iPhone.
Insider exclusives. Yeah. Come to thegamerstribune.net for all the latest. Again, I'm Rob Boeke.
I'm Josh Boeke at TGT Josh on Twitter.
And this was our first ever PS4 podcast.
Well, they know that because it's in the title.
Well, I still wanted to finish
Kenny G, take them away.
All right, guys.
Peace.
See ya.